The Education Lounge podcast.
So there's been a lot of talks nationally about sort of shortening school holidays or redistributing holidays. I don't know if you've followed it much or...
I haven't followed I haven't followed the news about it, but I've had thoughts on it. So.
I've had thoughts?
Yeah.
What were your thoughts initially?
Initially, I would say it's very balanced. There's like a lot of positives on either side of the argument and a lot of negatives on either side as well. So I don't really have a final conclusion just yet, but maybe we can come to one today.
Do you remember, I don't know if you think back much to school holidays that you had when you were a child and sort of your overall feelings on them? I don't know if you found them too long or...
I think it depends on my age.
Yeah.
So in primary school, they did feel quite long and I did end up getting bored towards the latter part of it. But then secondary school, they were about right, I'd say.
For me,
it's different.
For me, I got quite bored. Just whenever we had... I think because... We'll go more into this later, but independent schools have longer school holidays.
Yeah.
And I found them a little too long because we had 8 weeks.
Ours are very long, yeah.
They're insanely long. And yeah, I found it too much. I think by the fourth week or the fifth week, I'm kind of a little bored.
Yeah, but then you were also only child, right? So you didn't have...
Yeah, so we must protect the only children. Because remember as well, because birth rates are going down, there's going to be more and more only child children. So they're not going to be able to have siblings around and that kind of thing.
Well, let's go into what the school holidays are for and the background behind. Yeah,
so one of the reasons why they're so long in the first place is because of working patterns in the old times.
The 1800s.
More agrarian economies, and the children would need to help out their parents with the harvest. It's kind of born out of that, but I think now it's kind of the narrative is a bit repurposed because now it's about offering people enough rest. But it wasn't really about that in the old it wasn't about downtime. It was about actually getting people to work.
Yeah.
On something else. So
you should be working on something else in that time, really.
Well, the change is as good as a rest, as they say. I do find that sometimes I do just resting, sitting back and in a deck chair or whatever, sunbathing or something like that. I kind of think what's the point of this? I should be doing something else.
I've never been able to just sit on a beach.
It's so hard for me to do because I'm always I kind of want to. I like holidays where I go out and see things and do things, or visit museums or something like that. So I'm actually learning or stimulating myself in some way. Yeah. But recently, I think I've started to appreciate it a bit more, just resting. But I find that after a few days, it just becomes too much. Yeah, for me, after 1.5 days of doing nothing, I need to do something. I'd say at least 2, probably. Yeah. I'd say 2 days. I can rest solidly for 2 days and not do much. But after that, it becomes a bit why am I doing this? What's the purpose? Well, just to re-energize and, heal. But I think you heal by doing... You can also heal by doing something different. There's new experiences can, sort of bring you a new perspective on things and sort of open up your creative juices as well. So would you say that the summer holidays, that was the main or only reason was help out on farms and things? That was well, obviously, I think everyone needs some downtime at some point. But originally they're so long for that reason. and now we don't have an agrarian economy. So I think it's important that we, as a country, and based on sort of our modern economy, how should we redistribute holidays and that kind of thing? I mean, the one strongest argument for like just keeping it the same is just because disruption is not necessarily a good thing. Like sometimes if you change something, you know, it ends up disrupting people's patterns, which is sometimes not a good thing.
Yeah, but it's also difficult now because, well, in terms of childcare, before you'd have, well, the mother would be like at home looking after the child.
Well, yeah.
So like now, having a long summer holiday like that, again, it was like based on the farm thing, but in today's terms, we have like both parents are working.
Yeah.
Kind of have to.
There's like,
so like what happens?
There's like 3 different stakeholders, isn't there? Like you've got the parents, you've got the teachers, and you've got the students.
Yeah.
And they all should be considered. And before you come up with a sort of final conclusion, you've got to weigh up the benefits and negatives for each of the stakeholders. Yeah, as you say, the economy is very different now. Both parents are usually working.
Yeah, for the most part, yeah.
So that limits how much time they can spend with their kids, rightly or wrongly. Unfortunately, it's like quite difficult to find a job that can support a whole family.
It's very rare to find that.
There is also this sort of like cultural understanding that school holidays are at this time, so everyone's sort of taking a break at the same time. It's sort of So it's not quite as disruptive as it could be if like half the people work and half not. There is this sort of understanding that
roughly now everybody is off.
Yeah. Or working less at least.
Yeah.
But then I kind of think to myself, well, you know, doctors and nurses and things like that, their work doesn't stop during that time. Like they sort of continue. Although they do tend to build up holiday for that time, but that's only because that's the sort of set time that you say, okay, well, everyone's going off on holiday. I mean, there's this whole argument about how teachers, they work really hard throughout the year and then they need that time to reset, and so do students. But I just think everyone's working hard, like, no matter what you're doing. Like, should teachers automatically get like 6 weeks or students get 6 weeks when, you know, other people don't? I definitely feel that as a tutor, like, because we don't really holiday much. So
no, but then I also don't think our hours are as long as most people's.
Are they? They are quite long.
They're quite long, but I mean,
I don't get back till 8.
But most people will start at 7, 8 in the morning and then not go back till 8. We start later, we finish later.
True. Yeah.
We could always be doing more. Everyone can. But I mean, we can talk about the reasons to like for a longer and shorter a bit later on. I was going to discuss the length of holidays and how they differ between different schools in this country. Independent schools have, essentially they've got longer days. 8:30 to 4, or like 9 to 4, whatever it is. And then obviously this is not including extracurricular after school things. State schools have shorter days.
Yeah.
But
they've got shorter days, but they've got shorter holidays to compensate, basically.
Yeah, so they both do roughly the same number of hours.
Yeah.
I think it's like 32 and a half a week.
Say per term or whatever, yeah. I don't know whether it's exactly the same, but I would calculate
well, I mean, like roughly the same.
but yeah. If you got longer days and stuff like that, then you can kind of support longer holidays, I suppose. And
what would you prefer? I mean, I liked having longer holidays. Longer days and longer holidays. I didn't really notice much of a difference. I mean, leaving at 4 is not that different to leaving at 3:15.
Well, I think educationally, like, there's a massive difference between a lot of state school students and independent school students, or selective independent school students. If you think about it, like, one of the biggest reasons why we should potentially reform these holidays is because, like, students that are of lower capability struggle more after a holiday, after a break.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, in a school like Forest or a selective school, you don't have that issue as much. Sure, you forget things, or you might forget stuff after a holiday, but it's not nearly as pronounced. Because if you've got a stronger educational background, then a holiday is going to be less harmful to your development. So
yeah,
I think there is a bit of a difference in that sense. I do think that the longer days probably support the idea that you need a bit more downtime to recover, but I'd still say it was a bit long, like especially in summer. I think I'd rather have, like, longer, say, Christmas, or longer.
So you're saying, like, redistribute some of the...
Redistribute, yeah. So I have the same amount of holiday throughout the year, but redistribute it slightly. Maybe even sometimes half terms, just taking a few more days in half term, or...
We got a couple of weeks in half term.
Yeah, no, we got to...
That was okay.
Yeah. I think also, like, there's probably... Maybe there's the reason why they might do that for independent schools is because it's a bit more profitable for them to work it in that way.
Yeah, I never really thought of that, actually.
I don't... Like...
It probably is, yeah.
It probably does work out a bit more profitable. Like, if you were to make a day longer, it doesn't add as much to your overheads as making a term longer.
Yeah, adding an extra half an hour a day is cheaper than adding 3 or 4 full extra days.
So there's probably some profit motive behind it as well. But I think also just because of the sort of students that you've got, if they're slightly stronger on average, then you don't need to worry quite as much about it.
And they'll probably be doing some stuff at home as well.
Yeah.
Like the types of parents are going to independent schools.
Not me, but like...
But you would have done some work.
I did holiday homework, but I didn't but that's kind of normal for like any school. Like, obviously I think in independent schools you get a lot more. But that wasn't so much of a thing. I'd usually leave it to, like, the last 2 weeks and then do it all. I used to just do that, and it's probably just because I got bored, like, because it was like 8-week holiday, especially in summer holiday.
Well, I would have
been. The end of it,
I would have been doing, like, some reading, maybe some maths, like Kumon or something.
Oh, I didn't do anything like that. I just took it off, basically. But then usually we went on a long holiday. So we went for, like, 4 weeks. There's no time to do anything. Oh, yeah,
see, I never did that.
Like, if you go to Asia, you're going to be gone for, like, 3-4 weeks at least, maybe longer. So things like going... And, I mean, that's an argument for a long holiday, is, like, something that we always talk about is how little some kids know because they never get out there. And a summer holiday gives them the chance to actually spend time with family and do stuff and sort of build other foundations outside of what you learn in school. So for me, it was good. I learnt a lot about, like, say, other cultures and that kind of thing, or spending time with family. Yeah. They're just as important as learning things. I think in summary, like, independent schools probably can afford to take a bit more holiday than the state schools, but it's simply because of the makeup of the students rather than anything else. And also, I think, like, some of these wealthier parents, they can afford to go away for a period of time and might be able to afford childcare for longer. So there's a bit of a...
Yeah, it's a demographic thing.
Yeah.
It's, yeah.
Whereas, like, the single mother or whatever who's, struggling to get Jimmy to to school and sort of keep on top of work and manage the things that she's got to do at home and stuff like that, and get childcare in, I think it's probably quite a heavy burden on them to do it for longer.
So it's different for different people, and it kind of works as it is based on what the school is.
And I'd say that generally it's sort of, at least there's this common understanding of when summer holidays are. So that's good. But I mean, you could arguably shorten it a little bit, because I think you probably just need a month. And if you redistributed those other holidays, you'd have more downtime during the year, which might be a good thing.
Well, this also differs between different countries.
Yeah.
So I did put a list together.
I think you did it on there.
Maybe you can just have a look at...
What's on there? Yeah.
I'm not sure if they're fully in order, but and I can't see it from here. But the top, where the UK in terms of like the length of holiday, we're on like what, 4 or 5?
6 to 7.
6, 7. But like in terms of this list here.
But is that just summer, or is this?
This is just summer, and there's a list of random countries. But if you just maybe just read some of them out. So the longest one was Russia, right?
You got Russia, yeah. So 10 to 12 weeks.
Yeah, this is on average, and it's like.
Wonder why.
It might differ, but.
Yeah, that's so long. United States 10 to 12 weeks. They've got like pretty awful education system. United States. Russia, I mean, they're not really... They used to have quite a strong education system under the Soviet Union, but now I wouldn't say it's sort of competing with the best. And then you've got Brazil, you've got France, 8 to 9 weeks, Brazil, 8 weeks, Australia, 6 to 7 weeks, so that's quite similar to us.
And that's not in... That's in their summer.
Yeah.
So that's like December, January.
Yeah, which sort of makes sense, I suppose.
Yeah. So all of these are like, all these weeks are localized. They're not always during July and August.
India about 6 to 8 weeks. Japan. Well, Sweden you got 9 to 10 weeks. But I'm just wondering if Sweden, maybe they've got the childcare to.
Yeah, they will have.
Sort of provisions in place to actually deal with that. Japan 6 weeks,
which is the same as here, pretty much, right?
China, obviously, there's big regional variety, but it says 6 to 10 weeks. And then you got South Africa, so 6 to 8. So I mean, it's more or less the same, but I guess they all come from the same historical root. And once you set in it's like a cultural understanding, isn't it?
Yeah.
Then it's hard to sort of adapt it. But I think now a lot of people are saying things have changed enough for us to start considering shortening things. So even in Europe, and I think, was it Ireland or Scotland or something? Wales,
yeah.
Wales is, but I mean, again, their system is not very good. Like, they probably need to. They need to more, because I think their kids, like, they suffer a lot of summer learning loss. So it kind of like I said, like with independent schools, we could have like 8 weeks, we could have 10 weeks or whatever. I don't think it will make a huge amount of difference to the end result, because if you've got the ability to retain stuff well, then that's sort of more set in stone. But then in places where you have some deprivation, like Wales, especially in the education system, obviously it makes sense to sort of shorten things. It's interesting what teachers think about this, though, because
it's been mixed, I think.
It is quite mixed, because you've got some teachers who say we definitely need it, and maybe they do. In some circumstances, they probably do. I kind of think maybe there's a way around this where teachers could sort of do shifts or something like that. So there's some other way of giving teachers enough holiday time.
Yeah, but then it's not like nurses. Like with teachers, you need the kids need the consistency of that same person. People teach in different ways. People don't really like nurse in different ways. Like there's only one way to put in an IV, for example, but to teach maths, there's like loads of different ways.
Yeah,
and the kids they need that consistency in that.
Well, yeah, no, I think it's more about it's not so much about what they're taught. It's the
how they're taught.
The stable figure.
Yeah,
and that leads the class.
Because it's not just knowledge, is it?
That's true to some extent, and maybe at like primary school, I could sort of make that argument, and also SEND schools. They definitely they don't have as much break as other schools because the kids need it more.
They need the constant repetition.
But I'd argue that probably that's true in more cases than not. So actually, there's probably quite a lot of primary school kids that actually need a bit more consistency during that period. But
even that's the same across all countries.
Yeah, no. Well, I think it's probably true in like say the US, the UK, less so in Asia, because I think there's a bit more. They end up with sort of more equality of results, like as in terms of where children end up. So the better the education system, in terms of like where the kids are, probably somewhere like Japan, they could afford to have a bit more downtime because they've got quite a.
I think they also have like a bigger support network family-wise. Yeah.
So like I think certain economies. Having said that though, like Japan, I think work-wise, just because I think there's quite a lot of pressure in going to work a lot all the time and that kind of thing. So whilst the children might have need to have a bit more of a longer break, and probably the teachers too, maybe the society is not able to provide that, simply because there's not, like I said with Sweden, there'll be things in place that allow longer holidays and support networks in place that allow longer holidays. So without that, you can't really lengthen it. You can't give them more time. If anything, you're thinking about shortening the time, because that will be more in line with what society requires. The only issue is that now, obviously, teachers aren't happy. You've got like teacher strikes and things like that. You don't really want to like put more pressure on them to work more or that kind of thing, or work during the summer holidays, which is probably like one of the reasons why maybe they didn't sign up to become a teacher because of that. But it's one of the big sort of advantages of the job is the fact that you get those long summer holidays.
Yeah.
And then you take that away.
I think a lot of them do teaching for that reason.
I mean, it's the wrong reason to go into it. Like you should, but I know they understand it as a perk. Like at the very least, they understand it as a perk. It's a perk.
It's not like the main...
It's not the sole reason why.
Because
that's not a good reason to go into anything. But I think for teachers, would you really want to pile a bit more pressure on them by sort of shortening the holidays, even at the cost of so even if you were to redistribute the holidays, maybe they do need that amount of downtime. The trouble is, it's very hard to test. Like, how do you test this? Like, there's not.
You can't really. There's
You've just got to do it, and then you have like a trial year, and to be honest, even if you had a trial year, that's not enough time to actually.
And that's also more disruptive than just changing it fully. Because you're then going to change back afterwards.
Or maybe not. No, that's the thing. There's limited data on the effect of holidays and shortening them and that kind of thing. So there are individual differences per country, but you can see that they're more or less agreeing to some extent.
Yeah. Well, let's look at the different reasons. So you've got reasons to shorten. There'll be positives and negatives for that. And there's reasons to keep it the same / longer. Reasons to make them longer, we have mentioned these before, but there's more downtime for teachers and students.
Yeah. Important, especially, I think it more in the case of teachers than students. There's a lot about like students having a lot on them, but I don't really think it's not that much.
No, I think it's manageable.
Yeah, I think it's manageable in the case of students, but I think as teachers, I think the job's probably become more and more stressful over time. So I understand that.
Spending time with family and siblings and like creating that sibling bond and that sort of thing. So for me, my school holidays were filled with my sister and my cousins. We all went to the same school.
Yeah. I obviously didn't. I don't have any cousins here, and I don't have siblings. So I usually have to take a trip abroad to spend time. So I probably need enough time to actually do that.
Well, most of mine was spent with like grandparents and cousins and that sort of thing. And we'd do the occasional like small 1 week holiday, or go to the park, play football or whatever we did. So yeah, I think that's still quite important, because it's not just about the educational knowledge side of it. You've got to become a well-rounded person to be any sort of success, right? So I think it is quite important to have that.
Yeah.
But then arguably there is enough time to do that already.
Yeah.
So
no, I think there's definitely enough time.
Yeah. It helps students build independence.
Yeah, because it's out of a system.
So there's less of a routine. There's more like opportunities for them to be creative with their time and like lean into hobbies, and if they're older, maybe get a summer job.
Yeah, I think especially for our older students, I think having quite a lot of time to explore things is more important. I think for younger kids, obviously, it's very parent directed.
Yeah, but usually when your parents are working or whatever, and you're at home with siblings or by yourself, you have to find.
Yeah.
You naturally end up being creative because you get bored. You start, I don't know, building stuff out of other stuff.
I started just playing.
Make up your own games with.
I played quite a lot of games during holidays, like when I was just. But even after school, sometimes I just play computer games or something like that.
Yeah, but that's not. I'm talking about doing new things, like being creative with your time.
Yeah, but then
we didn't. When I was in summer holidays in primary school with cousins and stuff, we didn't really have computer games, not like proper ones.
Well,
so we'd end up like making up our own games.
I mean, there's reading books, but I think if I think about the average student, do they spend that much time reading?
Right, but I'm talking about being creative and making up your own games and like hanging out with siblings and that sort of thing.
I didn't do that. No, I didn't do any of that.
But do you think it's important? If you have siblings and cousins here, would you say it's? I
mean, I didn't need that, but
you're an exception.
Yeah, not an exception. I do think you need some new experiences, but I don't necessarily think like why you don't necessarily need to be creative during that time, or you can foster creativity during the time that you're working and that kind of thing. It's just different, isn't it? It's like good to have a bit of a change of environment.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's you, because there is less of a routine. You're not being told you need to be in this class now, you need to be in that class now, you need to do this now, that now. You have free open time.
I don't know. I kind of like having routine. Like it's nice to actually have a sense of like when things are happening and that kind of thing. I felt like often after especially like 6 weeks in, because we got like 8 weeks or whatever, I'd be thinking to myself like, I feel like I've wasted this time. Yeah,
I didn't feel that.
yeah, I don't know. I just had regret after holidays. Like,
No, I didn't have that.
whereas like I felt like at school I was like progressing and learning stuff and doing stuff, you know. And obviously that's probably the most social time of my life, of my life, at least, is at school.
Yeah. I think it's everybody's most social time. You know, see them every day.
I mean, they have studied this a little bit, and some evidence suggests that like you're more likely to get depressed during long holidays. And I was like, that was definitely a thing for me. Like,
yeah, but again, you didn't have the contact with.
Yeah, but I mean, they have done studies.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. I mean,
I mean, they know what happened. It's not exactly the same because like COVID was a bit of a weird situation, but like when you've got loads of downtime from school, you're more likely to get depressed. And if you're depressed when you're at school, you'll be even more depressed at home. So I do think that you know, for certain people it doesn't really work, like having long holidays.
Okay.
Yeah.
Two very different views.
Yeah. That's good.
So we've looked at the reasons to extend or keep the same. Reasons to shorten the holidays. I'm going to go through a list. But the main thing we've spoken about is it prevents the summer learning gap, which is we've spoken about quite a bit today already.
Mm-hmm. I've definitely experienced that with students.
Oh, I'm experiencing it with students right now, like this week.
But even like just basic things like they could do, like multiplying.
Yeah.
And then they can't.
Yeah.
They can't do it, and it's quite shocking how profound it is in some cases.
Yeah. Well, you need the repetition. You need the synapses to link together, and like the more you do it, the stronger the pathways become.
Having said that, like I've experienced, I also think like rest is important because let's face it,
absorb the information.
Yeah, in life is this process of learning stuff and forgetting.
Yeah.
Learning, forgetting.
And your brain forgets most of the things.
Yeah.
It's like something like 80-90%, like it's a lot.
Yeah. And I found that, for instance, it's like playing the piano or something like that, and then I take a break from playing the piano. I go back to playing it. At first it's hard, but then once I like play it a bit more, I play better. So it's like
the pathways start to light up again.
And they light up better.
Yeah.
So as a result, like they're strengthened. So and you see that with like say when you're helping students for exams as well, like the fact that they've learnt it before means that it's easy enough for them to get it back. It's just the matter of them reviewing it.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can prevent that, I suppose, by actually doing some work during
long holidays. You can do some work.
Yeah, doing just a little bit, like on a semi-regular basis, will sort of prevent some of those issues.
So short holidays are better for working parents. Like we said, nowadays, pretty much every family will have 2 working parents.
I think this is like the strongest argument really for it, because
the childcare issues.
I think without the necessary childcare provisions in place, I know like there has been some attempt to put in a bit more childcare provision, but it's not nearly enough to cover that amount of time.
Yeah.
And without that, it's going to be, I mean, we might have to just shorten them, because at this rate, it's not going to be.
It's based, like we said, it's based on like 1800s farming and needing that help. It's the whole timetable is based on old times, but this is a very modern problem.
Yeah.
So if the holidays were shorter, teachers wouldn't have to rush through the curriculum as they do currently, and it would also give children more time to sort of explore like new ideas, and the topics they do go through, they can go through in a greater depth. Because obviously you get if you shorten the holidays, you get longer / more school days, so more school hours, and that will give you more of a chance to like they can explore their own interests. Like different children have different interests.
I don't know how much I'd be in favour of like shortening the amount of holiday throughout the year. That's the only thing is like shortening the summer holiday would, I think, prevent some of the summer learning loss. But I think redistributing like 2 weeks or something like that, or just putting in just another holiday like at some other point in the year, just randomly, or adding to Christmas. That's also a lot of people, a lot of teachers, not all of them by any means, but some of them are in favour of like say adding and a lot of parents actually would support that too.
Well, it comes back to what we were saying before, because you get, they don't get to spend time with family that much because everyone's at work and they're busy, and Christmas is one of the only times, if not the only time in the year, where they can create those family bonds and that sort of thing. Yeah,
so I think actually Christmas would be a good, and I think it fits in that whole a bit more with the idea of like there being cycles throughout the year. So we're sort of hibernating more in winter, and it's family time and it's get fat sort of on Christmas meals and things like that. I think it actually plays well into our culture to add a bit more holiday at Christmas, and then
I would probably agree with that.
Subtract from summer.
But you wouldn't be, but not in favour of shortening in order to have more teaching time where children can explore their own interests and go through the curriculum in more detail rather than having to rush through everything.
Yes, but I think like one of the reasons why they might have to rush more is because, like, if you think about, like, say a SATs teacher, right? So if they're doing like year 6 SATs or something like that, the teacher's under pressure from the start of the year because the kids have also like forgotten a lot of things.
Yeah.
So if you were to like, I don't know about start earlier, it kind of depends what you think, maybe end earlier, end later or whatever. You've kind of reduced a little bit of that loss.
So you're saying you can get the same effect by distributing the summer like more evenly across the year through Christmas, maybe.
Potentially.
That would then reduce the summer learning gap, which would actually mean that they could go through.
Potentially, but I think I'd take like 1 week from summer and put it in winter, and then maybe I'd take the other one and put it in like
Easter or something
like that.
Yeah. Rather
than put 2 weeks in Christmas, because that would just like we know that they forget stuff over Christmas. Yeah. Like it's just one of those things. Like I've seen it so many times. Like they forget stuff over Christmas, but like just having that 1 week at some other point in the year might help them a bit more. And then Easter, you could lengthen it slightly, because I feel like, again, Easter's one of those times where it's like, I think it fits into certain, like I'd say the Islam and how they work, like Eid and those sorts.
So it coincides with
So I think it would actually be more equitable, like for everyone, if it were distributed in that way.
That's a good point. Yeah,
that's probably what I'd favour.
Okay. That's a good point. The last one we have is it's more like demographic based. So students who don't get to travel or like go on holidays with their family, they will be more at a disadvantage, because that's one of the highlights of having like a holiday. But if you have a longer holiday, students who don't do that already will be further disadvantaged from other students who have like travelled and seen other countries and like got these new experiences and things, or have the money for childcare or for tuition or for whatever else. Shortening this, it would mean students who don't get to do all that stuff would be less disadvantaged.
Yeah, so that goes back to what we were saying earlier. Like, obviously, like we could take any amount of holiday, and it probably wouldn't. Well, any amount. Maybe like we could probably at most take like 2 months, and we'd probably be more or less okay. Or
we did take 2 months.
Yeah, Yeah, maybe even 3, like at a push. Because like if you've just got that ability to retain stuff, then it's not so much of an issue. But a lot of kids don't.
Well, it's not just the ability to retain stuff; it's the support network.
Yeah,
and having the parents available to do this sort of stuff, like take them to museums and abroad and whatever else.
Yeah, if you've got support networks in place, I don't think it's so bad. But even like I've heard things on the radio, like talking to parents who are actually able to do that because they've got the support network in place, and they still find it hard. So I just imagine I imagine like what it's like for, I know, a single mother or like someone who's just living on the breadline, as it were, what they must be going through during that period where it's so difficult to
it's very different.
Like there is support, there is support in place, but there's not nearly enough in modern society considering the work patterns that people have. In fact, that's probably something that would drive a lot of growth in the economy, but also so it would improve everything. It's just like a bit more support for like childcare.
We are in the beginning of September. We've been the beginning of the new academic year, and we have just had summer. So what advice would you give to everyone starting out?
Definitely review things that you've learnt over the previous year.
Yeah.
So
would you say that's more important in like a GCSE year 11, or like a SATs year? Or
I think you can emphasize those years in particular, so test years, but it's equally important for anyone, like, because it will always be the case that there'll be stuff that you've forgotten or things that you need to strengthen. So I'd say no matter what state, in fact it's probably even more important if they're younger, because by that stage a lot of what they're learning is so fundamental. So just drilling some multiplications, practice that mental, something that I've noticed quite a lot is like mental agility and just like that ability to sort of think something through. Obviously during the holidays, doing stimulating things, that actually
a good balance between the two. Yeah,
if you, as long as you can.
But now that you're back in school, just get some workbooks and sort of work through things that you should know, just so you're both aware of the gaps, and you know, and you can practice those things and strengthen those things that you have more or less retained. Yeah, but I would also say probably organise yourself. You've got a new timetable. You might be going into year 7 to a new school.
There's a lot.
Get your bags, books, pens and everything in order, and like get your timetable in your mind, that sort of thing.
I never did that. I just followed people around. That was
yeah, but you used to follow people around to the wrong lessons and then like run off to the right place after.
It was fine though.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I'd say just keep consistently working on something that's related to what you did last year. Find gaps where there's issues, and sort of work on those gaps. Timetable rock stars is something that they do in school quite a lot. A lot of schools have license. So
yeah, I think basically everybody here uses that.
Yeah,
so.
and it's just it's probably a bit of a fun way to just keep practicing things, especially multiplications. But if it is GCSE, obviously you've got a whole load of things from like year 10 that you should focus on. I'd say like for A-level students, just get prepared for a hard year.
Yeah.
And same for like university students as well. Like you're gonna it's gonna be a new environment. It's gonna be difficult, but just be prepared for that. Obviously, there's pre-reading on most A-level courses and university courses that you should try and do, but just be ready to sort of hit the books, essentially.
Yeah. Thank you for watching this month's podcast. Hopefully it was useful for you and you enjoyed the conversation. If you did, a like and a comment would be good. Let us know your thoughts on whether you think they should be longer, shorter, or stay the same. We'll see you next time.